All right, so this is the part of the program where you're going to stretch it out. So at risk of just exhausting you, I have to tell you all a story. It's a little self-indulgent, but it's one of my last big events. So about 20 years ago, we had invited Malcolm Gladwell to Brainerd, Minnesota, to a in the woods retreat for 250 researchers. And we had the Q&A, and they had allowed, the program was moving too fast, so they had 45 minutes of Q&A with researchers, which is kind of what we were starting to do with you.
Right.
And literally, we never saw him again. He was supposed to come to the dinner and the cocktail hour, and then somebody saw him on the side of the road walking in rural Minnesota with a granola bar, trying to get as far away from us as possible. So I think you've been super indulgent, and thank you so much for taking that extended Q&A. So I want to invite Sarah back up, and Ben, would you like to join too? I think that'd be awesome.
Sure.
The more, the merrier. So let's kind of take seats here, and Daniel, you want to find another chair? I can even stand.
But Ben doesn't have a mic.
Would be just fine. He can talk loud.
He can talk loud.
Yeah. Oh, he does.
Sorry for my restoration comedy moment, entering stage left.
It was
and
so
then leaving
perfect.
again. Yes.
It was so perfect. It was brilliant. Exactly. It sounds better when you say it. Okay, so let's kind of kick it off with I want to do something slightly different. It's a little bit of a gift to you, Ed, for being so indulgent with the Q&A. You have this remarkable, one of the things that we've talked about over the course of the day is actually content that's agnostic to who creates it, that great ideas can kind of come from anywhere. And great content can, certainly. And I want you to share with the audience, because it's a remarkable story, the service project that you have and the service work that you've embedded in your agency, because I think it's a story that everyone really needs to hear. And that was also within organizations, everybody here has got bosses. We all have bosses, right?
Sure.
And it's a remarkable story of actually flipping over the power base in your organization and opening up a whole series of possibilities. So would you share that?
For sure. One of the things we want to really foster in our organization, the agency, we do believe, it's been said millions of times, great ideas come from everywhere. But a lot of times there's fear around bringing those ideas forward. There's a reticence in management, thinking that folks are being distracted from day-to-day operations, so on and so forth. So we've made it a piece of our culture that we have an annual competition where we're looking for people to come forward with new business ideas, social good programs we should be doing and backing and funding, certain types of brands or clients we should be working with that are doing good in the world that might not have budgets to have a big 1,000-person agency work on them. So we've done 2 initiatives recently that I'm really, really proud of, actually 3. One is we're working with Save the Children Foundation, and we are dedicating the same type of talent, creative resource, production resource in bringing to life a story for them and attempting to raise the funds and the capital they need to make a difference in the world. And that's something that we budget for. It's something that we have as part of our agency and our P&L. The other is we want to encourage all types of artistry and creativity in the agency. And the story we had spoken about, we had a couple of the very young folks, 22, 23, that were just in the agency, one from creative and one from production, and they approached us with an idea to create this documentary series. And in essence, it was just titled Becoming. And they wanted to tell the story, and it's something that's interesting, you don't hear much about, is the creative development process and how people actually become a creative. How do they become an artist, right? We go to galleries, we look at work, we look at films, right? We watch the Oscars, so on and so forth, but what about the process? What did they do in their life that got there? And so they had a proposal to feature an artist. His name is Bradley Theodore. If you've walked around New York City, downtown in Tribeca or Soho, you've most likely seen his murals. They're these very colorful sort of skeletons. And he has a couple famous ones like the Anna Wintour and Karl Lagerfeld that are looking at each other, so on and so forth. And the folks said, hey, can we just use some of our equipment and some of the facilities to produce a film for Bradley? And we sanctioned it. We said, absolutely, let's go for it. And we put some great creative resources, so on and so forth. And the team came back and showed me a 7-minute film that they did on this. And then they had another request. They said, can we get a little bit of budget to submit this to Tribeca Films? And usually, as you can imagine, agencies don't necessarily do so well in Tribeca Films, right? Because we come from an advertising world and they want to respect the art, which we completely get. But what was really fortunate is that it was accepted. It was actually one of the only pieces in recent history that's come forward. I think only a few agencies have ever made it into Tribeca Films. And it was done. We didn't promote anything. We weren't selling anything. It was just a film talking about the approach that this artist took on life and how that pivotal moment came about when they said, and it was a very touching line in the film where he said, I was either going to kill myself or I was going to become an artist. And he decided to become an artist. And we just told that story. And what was amazing is he became the artist in residence at Tribeca. He did a mural for De Niro, and now he's associated to that foundation. He's booming. And I saw he did a show not too long ago, and I'm looking at some of the pieces, and he's selling out a gallery of pieces that are in the tens of thousands of dollars. And this is someone who was in dire straits not too long ago. So it was fantastic, and this was something that just organically came up through the company, and now we're going to create a full content series around becoming and move on to dancers and chefs and anything that can be considered a creative art to get involved with there.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing
absolutely.
that. Sarah, let's turn over to you and Ben maybe after. You guys can riff if you want, however you want to do it. Let's talk about how do we get the two-way conversation going with consumers, and how do we kind of ignite that through mobile and through their use of mobile. There are a lot of different kind of orientations to that today. I think we could give everybody a carry-out container of some insights. That's what we want to kind of do here, and then.
So my opening salvo, I think, for this would be think it through. I think think it through properly, because mobile is so much more intimate a medium than any other we've ever dealt with. You've got to really think it through. It's so funny. So I got obviously caught on the subway. That's why I'm late. And I was checking my subway app. Well, sorry, I was checking my subway app. This does have a purpose. I'm linking it back to mobile. This does have and so I'm checking my subway app, and up pops this big banner ad, interactive mobile ad from HSBC. Something about some travel thing. Call now. Press this button. And I could hear the client conversation that had gone on behind this, which was, so this is a travel promotion. So we want to get people when they're traveling. So subway apps, that's about travel. Think about when someone needs a subway app. Like, they need it because they need it immediately now. They're running. Yeah. Like, I couldn't tell you how much I hate HSBC already. And now I'm really, really loathing them. But this is the truth. And I think we find that we have this conversation all the time, really. Particularly, we grew up in a TV world where, again, it's such a boring truism that we say it all the time, but you could buy eyeballs. And the nature of the message, you could just be a little bit more indulgent in the way that you use media. You just can't indulge yourself when you're entering into someone's hand. And I think it just requires much more humanity and much more thinking through than really we're kind of used to in our lazy media world.
Yeah, and I'll make it personal for me as well, which is I was in advertising for 15 years, but I was kind of an angry ad man. And we've talked about this. It's like I had to leave because it just made me so angry. I was like, I'm contributing to this.
When you were like one stayed, one left.
Yeah, I left because I just upset everyone because I just got too pissed off. And I was like, I can't keep banging on about the fact that you've got to listen to people, treat them like people. If you went to a party, I mean, like everyone talks about if you spoke to advertising like people, like if people spoke like advertising, you get punched in the face. Everyone's heard that. But it did. We regularly spoke to people like they were machines and deserved to get punched in the face. So I punched myself in the face in the end and left and became a poor startup. But I feel like what I'm doing now is and this is why I'm enjoying this process, because I'm still a planner at heart, and good planners and good strategists use research properly, and they use research from lots of different places, and they triangulate it and they bring it together to tell you something about the humanity of the people that you're speaking to, and almost brings you back, despite the fact we've got all these amazing tools, these technologies, some of which I'm creating and many of my peers are. There's still inhuman technologies, and we forget sometimes to put the humanity back into it, and then the creativity comes from that, and then you can start speaking like a human again. And I feel like too often we're messing around with technologies, hiding behind it. Data is extremely important, big data is extremely important, but just using data and applying it directly to then executions is blasphemy. It's terrible, and I think we do too much of that, and we've got to put the humanity back into it.
Fabulous. I want to pose one more question, which is a build off of the phone call that we had a few weeks back, and then I want to open it up to the audience and get ready. And because this is a really good interactive group here. So I think, Ed, you said, but we were all kind of riffing off of this on the phone, that there's too much lip service being paid, which is a direct build on what you were just saying, Ben. Too much lip service being paid to, I'm shifting this % of my spending to digital and this % on mobile, and just like counting actions, right? And in addition to bringing the humanity back, say more about the role of the folks in the room. What does the measurement industry need to do? What is the call to action? Throw down the gauntlet, because we know in our heart of hearts. I'll tell you, my first copy test I did, it was Crispy Wheats and Raisins, a brand that no longer exists, and it got this amazing score. Nobody knew how this copy testing thing worked at all. It was a million years ago, and the president of the agency hugged me, right? That was the only hug I ever got in my whole career, now almost 4 decades, from creative over anything that had to do with measurement, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So help us out a little bit with this. That's why we wanted to connect art and science together.
For sure.
You want to take the first shot?
Absolutely. One thing to be very clear about, every single CMO and client we have at the agency cares a lot about measurement. That's just fact. You'd be shocked at how many still think they can't analyze and understand how effective their work is. It's shocking. A lot of the things you guys were talking about today would be right over the head of many of the folks, not only at my agency, at most agencies and most brands. So I think part of the cause of that is creative agencies don't necessarily want that, right? Because as an example, we want to push forward the ideas we want to do that we think are right for the brand. And a lot of times testing and some of the other things that are going on, let's say before the campaign, kill our ideas, right? Prevent some of these things happening. But the reality is, this is where it's going. This is what clients are going to be doing. So one of the things I would say is potentially the opportunity is more and more conversations with those that are creating the work, the creatives, not the data and analytics folks, not the PhD scientists at agencies, not the media companies and partners. That all matters for sure. You'd be surprised at how much sits in the lap of creative folks at the creative agencies and the opportunities you have there. So I would say anything that you can do to help support the success of the work on the creative side, not just the media side, you will be welcome into the agency and the creative world. And again, I just had a conversation last week where a major brand literally said, yeah, I still don't know what piece of my communication is effective, so on and so on. Imagine the things you guys are talking about today, and then imagine a big global blue chip brand saying, I still can't really properly analyze the kind of work we're doing. So there's huge opportunity, huge value, potentially the opportunity to be speaking to some different folks as opposed to some of the existing folks that you're speaking to.
I would say, and I'm so sorry I wasn't able to stay for it all, it sounds absolutely fascinating. You may have covered this in depth, but my headline is, remember the top end of the funnel. Because I think what we find a lot is that our clients, it's great, the stuff you can measure is down here. I found myself, I do this gesture every single day. Optimize, email, 10x, email openings, and that's part of the picture. But there is the top end of the funnel. There is, the long and the short of it, I'm sure all of you are familiar, the great text at the moment, Peter Field, Les Binet, you've got to read that if you haven't, because he just talks about the intersection between the two things. And the fact that we can measure down here has brought everybody down here. But I think and in a way that was, Ben and I, that was our kind of inspiration for our talk today, because we could, you can kind of feel the pull of Jupiter. Oh, we're talking about mobile. We've got to pull ourselves into that. No, actually, we're going to push it up into brand, and we're going to have a brand conversation here. So that would be my point about measurement, is that you have to open it up to the long and the short of it. The brand that we're building, the big phrase we use a lot is brand over time, sales overnight.
I love that. I mean, one of the things that also was said was, I think data is a telescope into the future, right? Which is that like big view.
Yeah, and to that point, it's not always about predictive research, nor is it about testing. So I don't want to get, it's been a few years since I've been in a conversation where, like with Millwall Brand, for instance, where we've had an argument about whether this is right or wrong. And I never really liked being in those conversations because I kind of happen to love research. And I think one of the big takeouts is that real advertising people love research. Back in the day, there wasn't a strategy department. And to your point, talk to the other people in the agency, like some creatives love research. So research is your friend.
They were like,
and I think but when research is positioned as something that's come to kill or pass or something you spend loads of time working on, then that's when research is abused. And I think if research is used correctly early on to inform insights and to show that the whole team, because we're on the same team, is trying to understand society and consumers and products and commerce, and they're trying to turn that into great ideas, then that's when research is understood properly. And I think when it's used at the end of the process, or in a really, I still find testing of animatics, of advertising, TV animatics, which don't even look like anything like the finished film, and then trying to judge whether you spend money on building a film. That's bad research. Methodologies should never have existed, especially in this day and age when you can create video really cheaply. I don't even know if it still exists, to be honest, but there's bad research and there's bad use of research. And I think all good people are interested in things and humans, so all good people like research.
Absolutely. And just to build on, it was brought up, I think, by Ann Miller Brown and also Hannah from Facebook, this whole idea of diagnostics. The question is why, right? Why did consumers resonate with that, or why didn't they resonate with that? And peeling back the layers and getting those fingertips and insights for what their motivations are and how you can build value, to the comments that you all were making earlier at the top of the house earlier this morning. All right, how about a question from the audience, or a couple, please.
Question for Ed. Where can we see that documentary about the artist?
Sure. If you just do a Google search for Becoming Bradley Theodore, it's about a 7-minute film, and that's available online for you to check out.
Peter?
So to paraphrase Bogle, every client gets the empathetic they deserve, right? So in this spirit, how do you deal with the practical implication, one of the practical implications of Bogle, which is the shrinking cycle times, essentially becoming real time? How do you, agencies and helping clients, cope with that?
Sure. Should I start?
Yeah.
Without a doubt, one of the things we're talking to a lot of clients about is this notion of disposable content. And there's a viewpoint that when you're making an asset on behalf of a brand, it has to be this precious thing, and it's got to be crafted, and there's still a role for that, and there will always be a role for that. And when you look at film and some epic TV that we've all worked, that's still there, and it's going to be there. But there's a lot of other content that is vertical screen content that is literally digested in 3 to 4 seconds and never returned to, that we have to have different methodologies for. So we've structured, as an example, the content capability we've built out. It's not about finishing. It's not about motion graphics. It's not about any of those things. It's literally, can we shoot something now and get it ready for the brand and be posting within an hour? So that's how we've constructed the editors we're hiring, right? The talent we're getting, the kind of equipment we're consuming and using, even the way we're building out our space. We have a space in Los Angeles that's designed for Instagram shoots, right? The kitchen we've made for some of our food and beverage clients is designed for vertical screen. So it's in the details, again, with everything, but our point of view, this is where this is going. This is where most people are going to consume content. Right now, for the next few years, it's on a mobile device until we get contact lenses that have chips in them, and it's an overlay in our life. But for the time being, that's what's working, that's what's resonating, and that's the way we've invested in certain capabilities at our company.
How do they approve content?
You've got to build those systems, right? So you go from, I recall working on TV spots back in the day that would take 2 years, from strategy, right, to creating a business case, to proposing multiple things, to doing automatic testing and everything else, and then you're like, great, we're going to launch this in Q1 of 2018, right? That was a methodology, and there are still brands to this day that do that, don't get me wrong. But then there are other brands that we are then helping, almost as a creative consultant, advise how they structure their marketing team, how we do review and approval cycles, what kind of dashboards do we have that allow us to do these things, what are we tracking, what are we responding to. So it takes time, and we have a line sort of integrating a client on our back a little bit, so going in then and helping them. This is the kind of folks you need to have in your marketing department. No, this is not something that we can wait, you guys leave Friday at 5 o'clock and you come back Monday at 9 a.m. and then we talk about it. No, we have to talk about Friday at 6 p.m. So it is a cultural shift, and some brands and clients and teams are very open to this and others aren't.
So the adherence, just one more quick build and question posed. You both have a planning background, so just building a little bit on what Ed said. The other thing that I worked on also campaigns that were 2 years, and then the darndest thing would happen the next year. It's like time for a strategy change, right? They put like literally time for a strategy change on the calendar, right? Do you see more discipline and adherence to strategic continuity and discipline, or is it still, strategy of the month, changing? And are these multiple platforms exacerbating that, actually?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually, because I'm just trying to think about all my people I work with at the moment. I mean, the simple answer is I think everyone switches and changes, nearly everyone switches and changes, but every pitch brief I see says we want the thing that we're going to stick to. Because I think all this media is, it puts, to your point, it puts a lot more responsibility on clients. They could just before, maybe I've got a TV agency, a PR agency, maybe a bit of social agency, fine. Now there's all this other stuff. It's a big headache for them. There's a lot more for them to manage. For me, it puts a much more onus on the strength of the idea. So I find that actually a lot of my conversations are even more traditional than they've ever been, which is, what is this insight? What is this big idea that's going to hold this together? I think 10 years ago people were saying, the big idea is dead, it's all gone small. No, it's all really, really gone big. But I think there's just a massive disconnect. I think you brought it to life beautifully, between cultures that are ready to do this and cultures that aren't.
And it comes to us because I am no longer technically a planner, but we've built a tool that allows people in real time to sort of listen into conversations that are happening audiovisually. So a big part for us with how data works in real time is that we know that, emotionally, if the people talking about love seem to be using lots of Taylor Swift and Coke and some moments from the new Star Wars, it randomly is talking about love and happiness, or Walking Dead is talking about love. So we can kind of look into, this is very early days and this will be more sophisticated as we move on, but for us, the implications for data and real-timeness and understanding what your brand is about is kind of starting to associate which conversations, which areas of emotion are associated with which content properties or brands. And for us, that's really exciting, because you can then start planning and strategizing around who you really should be, because really at the end of the day it's about being truer to yourself. Good brands know who they are, and enduring brands stick to who they are. They just evolve the technologies and the tone as they go by.
Fabulous. All right, well, from becoming to who do you want to be, not just what you want to do, from a reform planner no less, right? I can't think of a better place to close than on love and happiness. So if you will join me in a round of applause for the panel. Thank you.